This is big picture anatomy with a quick look at the digestive tract and the organs that make it up and their role in digesting our food. Now, what we've got here is a highly schematic sagittal view of that inner tube going down the inside part of the body, forming all the organs of the digestive tract. I've just put in the bare minimum of some outer tube or somatic structures, the teeth at the head end of the digestive tract that start the process of digestion, of course, by chewing up the food, and I just put in an eye, a brain, and a spinal cord so you can get that, and then we have this real schematic view of those digestive organs. And so I'll just go through them from head end down to the tail end, starting with the esophagus, which really is just a muscular tube that carries food from the mouth into the stomach. At the anterior end of this esophagus, at the pharynx, is where the lungs, of course I've barely indicated them because we're not that interested in them right now, pouch off, but ventrally, to remember that's what happens. We get these pouches coming off of that endodermally formed inner tube of the body. So you've got the yellow endoderm forming the inner lining of the esophagus, surrounded by what I've dotted in is they indicate some of that smooth muscle that moves the food along there. Right where the esophagus passes through the diaphragm, we're into the stomach. Our J-shaped stomach, again, highly schematic, would be in the upper left quadrant of the abdomen in an actual person, with that greater curvature on one side and that lesser curvature on the other side of the stomach. And what we've got, if we zoom in, is at the entry into the stomach, the cardiac sphincter, circular muscle around there that controls the entry of food into the stomach, so called, I believe, because it's just caudal to where the heart would be located in the chest cavity. In fact, if we have pain and indigestion in that region, we often call it heartburn. And then you come to where food leaves the stomach in the pyloric region of the stomach and the pyloric sphincter that sort of guards the exit of food into the small intestines. The stomach is mostly about mechanical breakdown of the food with pretty relatively thick 3 muscular layers of smooth muscle around the outside of the stomach. But we do also get the secretion, if we're looking up close at the wall of the stomach, from these gastric pits, which were found between these little folds in the walls of the stomach that are called rugae. Aligning these pits are glandular cells called chief cells, which secrete hydrochloric acid, making the stomach very acidic, to allow for the action of the pepsin that's secreted by the parietal cells on proteins, breaking those proteins down into polypeptides or amino acid chains. All right, from the stomach we continue into the duodenum. The duodenum is the first part of the small intestines. It forms in the shape of a C, now in the upper right quadrant, and at the duodenum we have both the pancreas and liver pouching off from the inner gut tube and retaining their connection back to the stomach through their pancreatic duct or bile duct. And the pancreas, of course, produces those pancreatic juices which contain amylase to break down starches, protease to help digest proteins, and lipases to help digest fats. And then the liver produces bile salts, which collect in the gallbladder and then also are brought into the small intestines at the duodenum. Then they help to emulsify fats. And those pancreatic duct and the bile duct come together at what is called the sphincter of Oddi, where those digestive enzymes enter into the duodenum. The other main thing that happens as the food moves through the small intestines is that now the digested nutrients are resorbed through the walls of the jejunum and the ileum. And if we take a closer look at what those walls look like, then what we're going to see, they're very well now adapted for the absorption of nutrients, because we have these villi or finger-like projections sticking out into the wall of the ileum and jejunum, which increase surface area for absorption of nutrients. They have a capillary down the middle, as well as a lacteal to bring in fats, and the proteins and starches, amino acids and sugars all tend to diffuse right into the blood through capillaries, but you needed the lacteals to take up the much larger fat molecules and deliver them into the blood through the lymph vessels. And then underlying this wall of, oh yes, of course we have these simple columnar cells on the surface of the villi, with their microvilli also help with the absorption of nutrients. Underlying this lining of the small intestines are going to be Peyer's patches or mini lymph nodes or immune regions to help prevent any foreign invaders, any potential pathogens from coming across the wall of the small intestines. Finally, if we continue down from the small intestines, we get into the large intestines. At that juncture between the ileum and the start of the large intestines, we have the cecum, a little dead-end pouch with the appendix coming off of it, and these organs hold beneficial bacteria that help to break down fiber. They produce butyrate and other substances that, as the now mostly undigestible remains of the food move into the large intestines, some of it can still be useful to our body. In the large intestines, now what we're mostly talking about is going to be the resorption of water and formation of feces. We have the large intestines form like a frame around the entire abdominal cavity with an ascending colon or large intestines, same thing. Colon and large intestines mean the same thing. Ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and then an S-shaped sigmoid colon that leads to the rectum, and of course the anus where feces are expelled from the body. The largest intestines are thrown into these haustre or sort of rounded sacs by longitudinal muscles called the tinea coli, and again what we're mostly talking about is the resorption of water. So that's a quick look at the digestive tract, from, just to review real quickly, from head end to tail end. We've got the esophagus, which carries food from the pharynx to the stomach. As soon as it passes through the diaphragm, we're into the stomach at the cardiac sphincter, around to the pyloric sphincter where the exit from the stomach is. The stomach is mostly about mechanical breakdown with its thick muscular wall, and also chemical breakdown of proteins. In the small intestines, a lot of chemical digestion occurs because of all of the pancreatic juices containing digestive enzymes and bile from the liver, but also the resorption or absorption of nutrients across the very great surface area of the villi and microvilli in the walls of the small intestines. And of course from there we go at the cecum and the appendix into the large intestines with its ascending, transverse, and descending parts, where what we're really talking about mostly is the resorption of water and the formation of feces. So that's a quick look at the digestive tract from Big Picture Anatomy.